Hello and welcome to In Conversation with WLV Doctoral College. I'm Dr. Deborah Curiton and I work in research and development at the University of Wolverhampton.
And I'm Dr. Ben Halligan, I'm Director of the Doctoral College for the University.
This is the last in our series of vlogs about making an application for a research degree. And in this vlog, we're going to be talking about the ethics section and the resources section. So we're going to talk about the function of these two sections and our expectations. So Ben, do you want to tell us a little bit about the function? What is it that people need to tell us and what do we need to hear?
I think as part of an application for doctoral research, you would need to consider two, I think, fairly practical things. One is around resources and to think about what kind of special resources may be necessary for this project. It may be that you don't have any special requirements, but I'm thinking about researchers perhaps who might need access to an archive, a physical building archive or an online archive. I'm thinking about bits of software, I'm thinking about bits of lab equipment, I'm thinking about, the ability to, for example, run interview sessions in certain rooms on the campus, if that's intrinsic to the project. So in terms of a kind of list of what's needed, I think we would welcome that in an application as a first draft. In thinking about the resource implications, I would be keen to ensure that these are available as part of the research project. Not to have that perhaps opens up the possibility that further on down the line, when you decide these are really necessary, we've not managed to make arrangements. And I'm thinking particularly in terms of archival research, knowing that we can get access to certain archives in other institutions that may not necessarily be educational institutions, NHS data, for example. We would need to ensure that's possible and accessible at the point that we need to accept the proposal itself. This interlocks a little bit with ethics as well, but I think in an application we would welcome a few sentences on the kind of ethical considerations around the proposed research. Some proposed research will have little to no ethical considerations, stuff that's book-based, library-based. Other elements of research may have some ethical considerations, where, for example, you're engaging with other people, you may be interviewing other people, you may be engaged in lab work that you would need to follow the kind of standard health and safety procedures. So, we would need a sort of check, and we have an ethics committee that will support that and give you clearance and give you advice and give you the go-ahead. Some projects, as you can imagine, have quite serious ethical considerations where you're maybe talking to people who might identify as victims of certain things. There may be sensitive private material, there may be matters of data security, there may be matters of anonymity, there may be matters of visiting other places that present elements of danger. There may be matters of accessing material that's confidential or semi-classified and things like that. So while we certainly don't need you to provide the answers to this, I think it would be useful to flag up the kind of challenges that you anticipate and the kind of work that may be needed to resolve those challenges and gain ethical clearance to conduct the project. For this, again, I'm only talking about a few sentences, but I think these will illustrate an awareness of the importance of ethics as enabling research to be conducted with integrity and professionally.
And I think it's important to say here, when we think about ethics and that principle of do no harm relates to people that you may well be working with. It also relates to yourself as a researcher, so you do need to consider that. And also key stakeholders, so those are those organisations and institutions that you work within and with in the research programme. So thinking in terms of ethics in those areas too. So looking at our expectations, so when we assess these applications that people make, what are we looking for? Where do we think, great, this is fantastic, this is what we want to see?
I think we just need a bit of an engagement, a bit of thought, a bit of scoping, you know, we'll obviously talk about these things with you, gain assurances and so forth, and develop these ideas as we move the application forward. So we don't need an awful lot, but I think we just need some awareness that, you know, there may be challenges around resource accessing, there may be challenges around clearing the ethics, but I think where you have in an application somebody who will say, acknowledging these challenges, I look forward to engaging with your university's ethics committee in order to gain advice to conduct this research. That's probably as much as we're going to need.
Or, you know, that acknowledgement that there might be the need to have ethics approval from other organisations as well, for instance, the NHS.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's really useful to think about. But one of the things that I was going to add around the ethics is kind of understanding, you know, how people might be vulnerable in that process. So where people are working with vulnerable populations, or where research would make somebody vulnerable, maybe they need to talk a little bit more about some of those areas of where people could be harmed by the research, and demonstrate a little bit of knowledge around that. So I think it's dependent upon the research that you do, but suffice to say that this will be nuanced as you progress in the research. So what you say now, you're going to build on and grow, particularly when you come to go through those processes of ethics, you'll be in a much more informed space.
I think so. I mean, I think in my experience, the kinds of things you're talking about would be where, thinking about some of the current doctoral researchers we have at the moment, they may interview people who are suffering from, you know, certain illnesses, they may interview family members, and that's obviously private material. So in order to ensure there's no harm, we would go through processes of anonymity to a very deep degree, so that there will be no possible ability of a third party fitting, say, a transcript of an interview to the subject matter. So the ethics committee really enables the researcher to move ahead with confidence that any negative potentials have been entirely mitigated through the way in which the research is conducted and presented.
So to summarise, in terms of ethics, it's about acknowledging that ethical approval will be required, where there may be vulnerabilities within subject areas, where there may be third-party ethical approval required. In terms of the sort of around our resources, around any big expenditure that's going to arise from the research, it's a good idea to have something in your application about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thank you again for listening. As always, it's great to speak to you, and we look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you, and bye.
Bye.